I would like to welcome you to Case Western Reserve University, CollabTech 09. My name is Ron Ryan. I work for Information Technology Services here at Case, and that took a little while to learn how to say all that. A little bit of housekeeping. First of all, restrooms are out the door and to your left. We have a bookstore downstairs. Please feel free, if you are traveling, to take home souvenirs, drop a little money on our economy. Downstairs and to the right, there is a small restaurant for our students or campus facilities, and if you would like to take your networking offline or just feel that more than a cup of coffee is your cup of tea, so to speak, please feel free to utilize that. I'd like to ask that you take a moment to turn off your cell phones, respect for the speaker and those around you, put them on airplane mode, whatever. There will be no standing and pelting for first offenses, but
we will judge your ringtones, though.
correct. Those of you who are visiting, the kind of wild-eyed, zombie-looking creatures you see wandering around are our students. They are just finishing up finals. While we find them relatively safe and docile this time of year, we would like to ask that you do not poke them with sticks, especially if they are sleeping. They are our customers. To begin, a few months ago, they sent to us an announcement that came out of MIT that they had a new mobile web environment called m.mit.edu. We were so enamored with its elegant simplicity, we found it to be revolutionary rather than evolutionary. We immediately, like the good geeks that we were, began trying to reverse engineer it to see if we could utilize it on our campus. From that led an interest and discussion with the developer of that environment, and that led to an invitation which was graciously accepted here today. So I would like to introduce to you the developer of m.mit.edu from MIT, Mr. Andrew Yu.
Good morning. Thank you for coming, and certainly it's an honor to be invited to this CollabTech 2009. And we've been to a bunch of different conferences, and I think there's this huge interest on mobility in general. And what I wanted to do today was to sort of share with you the work that we've been doing so far, and hopefully be able to open up a way to collaborate in the future so we can all mutually tackle this huge challenge of mobility and providing information on the college campuses. So my name is Andrew Yu, and I am not the only developer for this particular service called m.mit.edu. I do have a team in Cambridge who have been working on this for quite some time now, and we actually have both internal and external team that's sort of getting together once a week to basically work on this project together. Now, they're not all full-time folks. Certainly, they have other job functions, and in this economy especially, we also have to make sure that the resources are aligned. But one of the things that we wanted to do was basically from looking at this screen here, right from the onset, we wanted to make this service available to everybody. Not just a particular set of platforms that happens to be popular today, and they'll probably be popular tomorrow. But it's basically a way to distribute information, whatever they are, to any devices, including the Motorola Razrs of the world, the regular cell phones, aka the feature phones, all the way out to the iPhone, which actually has a lot more capability built in. So in sort of a one sentence, well actually it's not a sentence, a phrase, our vision for mobility is to basically provide this information to anybody, on any device and anywhere. And the way we actually, if you kind of go back about 15 years ago, this was not a vision that's unique to our own. I'm sure everybody wants this particular thing to happen, where you actually have a device that you carry around with you, and that actually can give you all the information, right inside that little device. And today, it's called the smartphone. It's called the cell phone. And 99% of our student population probably has a cell phone, one kind or another. The question is, how are they using it, or what can they do with it, and what are we doing to actually provide the information that they're looking to do instead of having to take out a laptop to perform certain tasks. So I took a little moment last week in preparation for this event, and I did a little bit of a sort of a mixture of a cloud tagging thing. I used a web-based software to just put in a bunch of words that are out there that sort of describe mobility. And it's an extremely complex world that we are living in today. It's not the world of the PC/computers where you have a Windows versus Mac, and then a little bit of Linux here and there for that. It's not the world of the regular web where you have Safari, Firefox, and Internet Explorer being the dominant browser, and maybe throw in Chrome. That's about 4 right there. In the world of mobility, you have to think about not just the device, not just the operating system, but also the carrier, also other applications that are either available or not today. And how do you actually reconcile all that and put together a solution that actually works for everyone? And certainly that's a challenge. So this is very complex, and the ones that are popular today, the iPhone as an example, sort of stands out because a lot of marketing effort been put in by Apple, but also because people actually love that product. BlackBerry is the other example where they actually have done a really good job with the delivery of the email services. So essentially, that's another really huge platform. Android is something that's coming up. As you all know, Google actually did this open source based project, and it's actually taking off, albeit slowly compared to the iPhone. But certainly, we can expect a lot more to be happening from the Android side. So if we look at now just the smartphones that are available in the US market today, basically that's how we see it today from the MIT's perspective. So you have a BlackBerry, Windows Mobile, iPhone, Android, and then you have the Palm Pre that's coming out in the next couple of months from Sprint and Palm. And there's a lot more stuff that's out there, but certainly these are the quote-unquote 5 or 6-ish, if you include Symbian from Nokia. So it's still very complex. It's not just one particular platform. Now I'm breaking this down into the actual platforms, so now you see the different things that are out there. Access Powered actually stands for Palm OS. Basically that's going away, thank God, so we don't have to worry about them anymore. But instead, Palm Pre is coming out, which is actually now based off of the Web OS, which shares a lot of similarities between, let's say, the iPhone and Android in terms of how they render HTML. And then there are lots of others that sort of look like smartphones, but in fact they're not. And that's one of those challenges that we have, because people see the TV commercial and they see Sprint Instinct. Oh, that looks just like an iPhone, as an example. Well, how come I cannot do X, Y, Z with that? And so we kind of have to be mindful of those devices. But certainly these are the platforms that we're looking at. But then if you sort of superimpose what carriers offer, then you sort of get into a little pickle. So Verizon Wireless today is the more dominant carrier at MIT. Well, as you can see, they offer 3 of those platforms, but they do not offer the iPhone. They do not offer any of those Symbian. They do not offer the Pre. They do not offer Android. So the reason why they're dominant is because their network is better at our campus today. And so it's a little bit of a challenge to say, hey, let's have everybody go with this other thing that, by the way, does not have the really, really good network behind it. So from a central IT perspective, we have to work together with the other carriers to improve their network if we see a strategic platform. But certainly it's not a simple solution. And then there's the other thing, which is what types of network. So the US market is actually one of the most complicated market in the wireless environment. So many other countries have sort of standardized around 1 or 2 platforms or the network communications, whereas we've sort of spread it really, really thin. Now, due to consolidation in the industry, now we're sort of down to 4 major carriers. But even so, you have Verizon Sprint sort of being the CDMA, but then their path for 4G network, that's the fourth generation network, is going to diverge. So one's going with LTE, the other one's going with WiMAX. AT&T and T-Mobile, while they are both GSM carriers, well, they use different frequencies, as an example. So with the one 3G device from the G1 from T-Mobile will actually not be able to get the 3G service on the AT&T network. So it's a very, very complicated situation. And once again, when you superimpose all that, then you go back to this picture. So that's the world that, that we are in today with mobility. But, you know, the challenge is, let's forget about all that, and let's just look at some simple picture of our users. Now, these are not MIT students, by the way. But they certainly represent, you know, potentially a student or somebody who maybe teaches at MIT, or some, you know, visitors to MIT campus. So they have two options right now. So they can either, you know, bring out their laptop and go to the course management system and, you know, submit their homework, or pull out their mobile device and then, you know, get information about, you know, some of the class announcements, as an example. But these people, they don't care about WiMAX. They don't care about the LTEs. They don't care about, you know, what platforms are available. And all they care about is, does my phone work in my room, in my dormitory room? When I walk into the student center, can I talk on my phone? The answer is no to some of those carriers, by the way. You know, can I have access to my email, obviously, but also are there services available through the mobile web or mobile application? So that's all they're caring about, which is basically our job is to sort of meet their demands. So we've been sort of, you know, sort of feeling the pulse on the campus, and just to find out what people are interested in, what people are looking to do with their mobile devices. And so this is a survey that was done back in October, November of 2008. And that survey went out to, F stands for faculty, researchers, G is graduate students, undergraduates, and administrative folks. And the question was, basically, you know, what are you likely to acquire as your next mobile device in the next year? And the number one by far was an iPhone. So faculty members especially, I think close to 70% basically expressed interest in getting that. And then if you look at, you know, the third block here is a BlackBerry. So if you combine those two, and if you sort of combine a chart, then basically that represents close to, you know, 80% of each demographic saying they want either an iPhone or a BlackBerry. Now that's sort of in line with what the US market is like today. Palm OS is falling away, and of course Windows Mobile is not as popular, and Symbian has yet to really make a crack in the US market. So, so we can expect that this same chart probably to change a little bit, of course in the next 6 months or next 12 months as Android is more available. And of course when this survey was done, by the way, Google Android did not exist, so officially. And so what we are really trying to do is just trying to get an idea as to what people want. The other thing is, we're also noticing that, surprisingly, a lot of people are using SMS. So faculty, close to 80%, undergraduates, close to 100%. And that's their mode of you know, mobile communication, along with email, and then web browsing, and so on. And of course, at the very bottom, social networking sites like Facebook and others to basically you know, check up on their peers and whatnot. So on the other hand, you know, as I was mentioning, you know, mobile websites and mobile applications are everywhere. So iPhone with their App Store has proven that there's this huge demand for mobile applications. So it's not the question of you know, what can you do with this device? It's the question of what can't you do with it. So you can do, name something, and you can do something with it. We can do that particular thing with the devices where we are today. There's so many applications out there that takes advantage of, everything from location-based services that allows you to, to play video, and basically do games. And of course, social networking. And in this context, what are we doing about this, from an academic perspective? And by the way, incidentally, I was trying to do a Twitter thing with this group, but realized that's going to be a little challenging technically. But with Twitter, this whole thing comes out to be about 77 characters with spaces. And that's the other thing with Twitter. There's another opportunity where you can actually be physically connected with all the Twitter followers, directly from your mobile device, and that's certainly something that we have to, think about and consider. So mobility at MIT essentially starts with the MIT website. So that's basically a picture. There is the MIT website. I think this was from May of last year. And when you look at that website from all these mobile devices, whether it was the iPhone or a regular cell phone and whatnot, basically it worked, but it was horrible. User experience was simply not there. And what you really have to think about is not just the question of does it work, but it's a question of the entire user experience. So user experience from the mobile user perspective. And that's the thing that we were trying to address with our project. So the URL is at m.mit.edu, and you can go there from any device. And that's what it looks like. And for those of you who haven't been to this site, you can certainly do so afterwards. And there's something new here that we just recently introduced as our beta service, which is text messaging service. So the information that's available through the mobile web is now, not all of them, but some of it is available through text messaging. So 648338, that spells out MIT-EDU on your regular cell phone dial pad. And if you text message info to that number, then you will basically get instructions on how to use the service. And our website also has some instructions on how to do so. So if you wanted to sort of find person named John Smith at MIT, then you would text message to that and then say DIR. And if you were looking for the location of the bus, the tech shuttle, then you would do bus TS. So it's all shortened. And the idea is that we're providing the information to the people who do not use mobile web, and there are a lot of them out there. So step back a little bit and just to give you a perspective on this. So ISNT, that's the central IT organization at MIT, so we looked at the mobile mobility as a strategic initiative. And so we got some funding from fiscal year 2008 before the whole economy collapsed. And so we were lucky to actually be able to sort of do this initiative. And the idea was, to build two components to this. One was the mobile web and the other one was SMS. But more importantly, the idea was, how do we build it in such a way that we can deploy the outcome of what we've done to the rest of the MIT community? So there's only so much we could do. So as an example, you can just see that there's about 12 different modules that's available today. Well, we expect there to be 48 modules, ranging from MIT museum sites to libraries to Tech Cash, which is our debit card system, on and on and on. And all these new sites that are internally developed at MIT, obviously they shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. So how do we as a central IT organization provide the framework for others to actually use what we built? So that they can actually deploy something more efficiently. So our audience, of course, is basically MIT students, faculty, staff, and visitors. And that's not I would say they're a little bit different from the normal folks that are out there. So MIT students have, I think, a little higher set of expectations. And there's probably a lot more used to more cooler stuff. So we certainly have to keep that in mind. We have roughly about 21,000 total population and plus visitors. And what we really focused on is, while it's nice to have something that's going to work for every single device, we had to focus on we have to basically simplify things into 3 different buckets. So we focused on the iPhone, smartphone, and then the feature phone. So we looked at basically our entire IT infrastructure and then said, out of all this stuff, what can we do with this, initiative for this 1 year? And then what can we do in the future? So as all of the other universities basically have similar things like collaboration tools or the student systems or the learning management, today we haven't done a lot on those things yet. So we've done some work, but we haven't done a lot yet. So we're just scratching the surface as to all these other potential applications that we can deploy. So we're tackling things like authentication, so that we can actually be very confident about the people who are authenticating to the m.mit.edu. We've tackled things like, obviously, the user interface and some of the other things. But there's a lot more work that needs to be done for the future. Just to sort of give you a perspective on the system architecture, and I think some of you may have seen this in the past, but we basically have a very straightforward layer here of the different things. So the first one is the browser detection. So it's important for us to know, what kind of device you're coming from. And then based on that information, then we will basically provide the presentation layer that's appropriate to your device. So if you're coming from a BlackBerry, we'll give you the quote-unquote smartphone bucket. If you're coming from a Motorola Razr, then we'll just give you a feature phone. If you're coming from the iPhone, you'll get the iPhone. Actually, we recently added Android to this, so you can actually come to this site using Android device, and then you can basically get the same thing. And then there are all these individual pieces of data that's available outside of our server. So that MIT has an LDAP server that provides the people directory. We have the map server to provide the campus map images and search capabilities. And we have some third-party, NextBus is the one that we're using for shuttle schedule. So we actually have a GPS tracking devices on the shuttle buses, and they're basically getting fed from NextBus in San Francisco to us via XML. And then we have other modules that are basically available. And of course, this is 1.0, and 2.0 is actually going to have a lot more. But the other thing we actually are looking at is taking the browser detection piece and separating that as another web services that's going to be available to other departments within MIT. So as an example, if, let's say, the libraries want to build their own mobile website, then they could just hit our service and then say, okay, just give me the browser detection. I'm just going to give you the user agent string. And then we'll tell them what that is, so that they don't even have to worry about building this whole thing themselves. So that's what we talk about in terms of building efficiencies and collaboration with other developers, so that they don't have to waste their time in some of those things that we've already worked on. Looking at the MIT SMS has a very similar structure, except that in order to provide the SMS service, it's a little bit more complex than setting up a web server and assigning a domain name to it. So we're going through an SMS aggregator that's providing the communication channel back and forth between individual carriers, all of the 5 carriers that are mentioned here. And on our end, we're basically providing the message parser and content generator that has to fit within the 160 character limitations. So there are some challenges there. But essentially, we have 3 different services that's operational today as a beta, and then we plan on adding more in the future. So I'm not going to go through all these modules today, but I wanted to show you some of the work that we're doing for version 2.0, so that you can have some idea. So by the way, who haven't been to this website? Oh, Okay, well, then maybe I'll do a little bit of a demo. So what you're looking at here is our beginnings of the mobile web 2.0. So one of the things that we have is, so we have, let's say, people directory. And so let's try to find somebody. So you don't have to type in the full name. Basically, you have to just, because in the mobile context, you don't want users to basically know everything about the whole thing. So basically, just putting the initial J for the first name, and then the beginnings of the last name certainly provides enough information to the LDAP directory. So we get the query results back, and if I wanted to call Jerry, I can basically do that with my iPhone, let's say. And then I can actually find out where his office is, which is in building 10. And there's a photo of the building, actually. And you can find out the other offices that are in the building 10. And the other thing is that with the iPhone and iPod Touch, the map application, the quote-unquote Google Maps, is actually built in. So you can actually click on that, and then they will launch the Google Maps app so that you can actually find directions that way as well. So with 1.0, in order for me to zoom out of this, to look at the campus map, I basically essentially have to rely on these buttons, which isn't bad. But with 2.0 that we're working on, then you can basically do things like the gestures. So you can actually zoom in, you can pan, and things like that. So it's going to work a lot better. So that's the campus map. And shuttle schedule is the all-time favorite from most of our faculty and staff. So you're looking at the schedule right now. There are 2 buses. One is in the Kendall Square. There's another one in Westgate. And so the times are represented, and then the route map is available. The other popular one, especially at the beginning of the semester, is Stellar. So this is our course management system that allows you to browse and find the class, or you can actually search for it. So let's say I'm a student taking a mechanical engineering class, and basically I can get the information about the latest information from the class website directly through the mobile interface. And of course, I can find information such as the lecture, the times, location, staff. So if we wanted to go back here and figure out where building 1 was, that's the location, then you can find that information directly from here. So we have other modules similar to that, but one of the new things that we've added recently is in anticipation of the new modules that are coming online, we are now allowing people to customize this homepage. So if I'm a student, and let's say I am really the heavy user of Stellar, so I'm going to put that first. And then the campus map, actually, I'm going to put the shuttle schedule next. And then you go back to the home page. Then now what you get is the Stellar is at the very beginning, and shuttle schedule is second. Now, right now, that doesn't make too much difference, but imagine if we had another 4 or 5 or 6 modules, then they will make some difference to the user interface. The other feature that we've added is basically what's new, because we are once again anticipating releasing various different modules in the near future. So you'll actually see some of the announcements that we've been making to the users of the m.mit.edu through this. And if I go back to my homepage again, that little icon is gone because it knows that I just read that, or at least it thinks that I read it. So then basically the idea is that we are building some intelligence on top of this so that we can actually interact with the end user in a little bit more customized way. Another thing that we've added is the MIT certificates. So we use X.509 certificates very heavily at MIT to authenticate users to various websites. And what we are doing with this is to try to make it easy for them to authenticate without using their username and password. So essentially, what you get is once you go, with the iPhone especially, you just go to this link, and then you can fill in the information. Okay. So you put in your username, password, and then the MIT ID number, and then you get issued a profile that gets downloaded to your device. And from that point on, you can essentially use any website at MIT that requires certificates without having to enter a username and password.
If I can mark, if somebody steals my computer, is my identity stolen?
Absolutely. If your computer is stolen and if you did not protect your computer, your identity will be stolen. But so what we are doing for that is we've added extra security layer. So this is what you get. So if I installed the certificate the way that I just described, basically in my profile on the iPhone, you see the MIT root certificate here, and then that's my certificate. Now if I click on that, then I get two things here. So one is my certificate, but the other one is a passcode policy. So if you picked up my device, if you don't know what my passcode is, it's essentially useless. So at least my data is protected that way. And if you have things like an Exchange server on the back end, and if I actually lost this device, I can actually log in and wipe the device remotely. So there are a few infrastructure that we've actually are utilizing to actually answer that question. So the new thing that we have, actually I'm just going to go back here because the simulator can't quite simulate the certificates. So let's see. So one of the new modules that now we are building is the Tech Cache. That's actually the first one that we're building that allows MIT users to authenticate. So Tech Cache is a debit card system used by students and faculty and staff at MIT. So you can actually use Tech Cache card, essentially that's your MIT ID card with magnetic strip in the back. And when you make the transaction now, you can come back to this m.mit.edu. Actually, as of next week, you should be able to, and basically check your most recent transaction. And for students, if they wanted to, let's say, refill their balance, so their balance is running low and they have to transfer funds from another account to Tech Cache account, they should be able to do that in the future. So the idea is that transaction that I just described today was only possible if you pulled out your laptop. But in the mobility setting, you are in the line, let's say, at the bookstore, and then you realize that your balance is down to $50, but you're about to purchase something that's going to cost $200. It's kind of annoying to pull out your laptop and do that, so you can directly do that from your mobile device. That's the whole idea. Okay. So you're certainly welcome to check this out on your own by going to m.mit.edu. So the other interesting thing that we've learned while operating this website is that there's certain platforms that are a lot more popular from our perspective. So the traffic actually went up, especially after the students came back in September, but it's also cyclical. So winter vacation, January was IAP, so not many people around MIT. February, students come back and basically the traffic goes up. But the platform perspective, iPhone actually represented surprisingly a really broad user base. So we had roughly somewhere between 55 to 65% of traffic coming from iPhone and iPod Touch users. Android is still very small, given the fact that they just released the device back in December. The rest of the smartphones is about 15 to 20%, and feature phones represent maybe 10 percentage points. So what that tells us is that these Motorola Razrs are not coming to these websites. And instead, we're offering the SMS service for that particular audience. So what we are working on with version 2.0 is additional content and additional personalization using things like the certificates. But we also are working on a web single sign-on shibboleth implementation, what we call Touchstone at MIT, that allows users of various smartphone devices to actually authenticate to other web properties within MIT. We're also doing enhancements to the web applications, especially the campus map, where now we're taking advantage of some of the gesture capabilities that are built into the iPhone. And with the iPhone 3.0, you can actually do location-based services directly from the web app. So for the first time, we'll be able to offer that. I think that's probably coming sometime, after the WWDC, and we expect similar type of capabilities to be available on Android and some of the other platforms like the Palm Pre. So the work that we are doing essentially can be translated to not just the iPhone platform, but the other smartphone platforms in the future. Additional contents include things like Tech Cache that I mentioned earlier, with libraries, dining, arts, and whatnot. And there are some other interesting stuff that we're also working with. We've been working with Nokia, as an example, with their NFC technology. So it's a mobile payment system where you have a mobile phone with a NFC chipset. That's a near-field communication. And we did a trial with MBTA about 1.5 years ago. And the idea was you use your phone to pay for the subway or for the bus. And you could also go into 7-Eleven and buy something, and just take your phone and go like that at the cashier, and then you're done. And by the way, a lot of people are looking at me like crazy when I just did that instead of pulling out my credit card. But the idea is a mobile device can also do a lot more things, especially if you go to other countries in Asia and Europe. You will see a lot more usage of these technologies. What we're trying to do at MIT is to basically introduce that to the community and then do some help with the trial and research projects that way. And there are lots and lots more from our research projects. So tools and technology, we are basically sticking to everything that's open source, which will in turn allow us to open source our code. And I'm just going to skip that slide. And we're looking at some of these future possibilities, which incidentally is really not so much of a future, because they're already there in some other countries. This is a picture of a vending machine that I took from Japan last summer. What you will notice is on here, you can actually take your phone and go like that, and then pay for a Coke or a can of iced coffee. And that's been available over there for quite some time now. And that's, I suppose, one of the future possibilities. This is a taxi cab in South Korea. And once again, there's a terminal here. I can take out my mobile phone and then go like that and then pay for the taxi cab fare. And that's been deployed out in Seoul area for, I think, more than 3 years now. So there are lots and lots of other opportunities that we simply haven't tackled yet. And I think we can see some of these mobile technologies sort of seeping into the US market as well. So we're sort of trying to participate in that. Some of the other stuff that we're working on is native applications for strategic platforms. We haven't yet committed to anything yet, but given our past demographics, I think we're certainly going to tackle a couple of platforms to provide native applications that do things like location-based services. We have a lot of student applications and projects through CSAIL and Media Lab. CSAIL stands for Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab. We've done some work with QR code and NFC that I mentioned earlier. And the Media Lab with Center for Future Banking actually is helping us with the mobile commerce deployment. So I just wanted to highlight one of the student applications from last year. So we did this class, 6.087, Building Mobile Applications, and we offered it from spring 2008 till fall 2008. And one of the student team projects, Locale, actually won the $300,000 Android challenge. So, a lot of MIT students are excited about the mobile platforms, and they're building applications and actually making a difference. Now, we have yet to deploy their software to MIT campus, but we'll be working with them hopefully in the future. So with all this stuff going on, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from other schools, our internal MIT faculty, staff, and students, but also from incoming freshmen. And one of the incoming freshmen actually wrote to us before he actually came to the campus last year. And he was very excited to actually be able to use this service. But he also expressed a thought that's commonly shared by all of our team members, which is we should be spreading this technology around. We should be sharing this with other schools so that other students can also take advantage of this. And that's the reason for our attempt at an open source project. So for those of you who are interested in this, you can go to SourceForge and you can download a zip file that contains all of our source code from version 1.0. And right now, that's the only thing you can do. You can download that and then sign up for the mailing list for an announcement only. In the future, we'll be putting in things like forum, developer mailing list, version control, and an example site. And hopefully we can start collaborating on the future versions of the mobile web. Now, we have certain environment. Other schools have other environments. So I got an email from, I think it was Indiana University, saying that their environment is with Java. Now, of course, we haven't done anything with Java from the mobile context. So we might need to sort of, they'll probably contribute Java source code into this project, and then we can sort of collaborate on that. So that's my short message. Let's collaborate, and thank you for coming.
Question for you. Hi, I'm Mark Majors. I'm from the Cleveland Institute of Art. And about a year ago, my IT director went and heard your speech. So I actually reverse engineered your mobile
Awesome.
and attempted to put it on our site. So I do have a script going on. It looks similar to yours. The question I have is, you started talking about SMS. And is the SMS number the MIT EU, that 648338?
Yep.
Is that like a phone registry? I mean, how do I go ahead and get a number like that so we can use that as well?
Yep. So that's what's called the common short code, and it's like the domain name. So you go and register mit.edu. I think in the old days, the only company that you could go to was Network Solutions.
Right.
So similar to that. Today now you can go to GoDaddy anywhere and basically get your domain name. With the common short code, the only company that you can go to is Neustar, Neustar. It's a monopoly, and they charge quite a bit
Really?
just to have a vanity short code. If you go with the more simpler one, actually the randomly generated one, it's a little less.
So they just can spit one out and you'd be happy with it.
Right. So that costs money to actually reserve that vanity shortcode, just like a vanity license plate. So we happen to pick 648338. So MIT EDU is not taken. I mean, it's taken by us, so nobody else can take it. And then on top of that, then you would basically use an SMS aggregator to handle all the traffic that's coming in from the carrier side.
That was my next question.
Right.
You mentioned the SMS aggregator. Is that your own creation, or are you partnering with a company on that?
So we're partnering with a company called mBlocks to provide that service. So there are actually a number of SMS aggregators out there. So you can kind of think of them as an ISP. So otherwise, you would have to go and negotiate things individually with the carrier, and that's something you don't want to do.
The big thing with the iPhone that changed were the applications. So all the apps that are coming out.
Yeah.
How do you foresee that? For example, you're talking about being able to access information through the mobile device, through, for example, you're talking about accessing your account information. I know recently, being an iPhone user, there's AT&T launched something where I can go in and check my account out just through the app. So how do you think that's going to parlay into your vision of, you've got the site, but are people going to start using apps more than going to your site? Is it an integration between the two, or is it a battle?
So that's a really good question. So if you look at some of the other iPhone native applications from other schools, and if you try to use that while you are in an airplane, you cannot do anything with them. And that's the bottom line. Without a network connection, those native apps are meaningless, right? So the web app that can stand alone as long as you have network connection. Unfortunately, a lot of these native apps also require you to have the network connection in order to be functional. So having said that, there are things that the web apps cannot do today that the native apps can perform very well. Things like the location-based services that I mentioned earlier, you cannot do that with a web app today, but you can do that with a native application on the iPhone as an example. So there are things that we think we can build that will add value to the user experience, where having the native application certainly would be, allow the end user to do things that they cannot do with the web app. But on the other hand, all that user interface, all the data, the communication channel that we built for the web app can get straight, ported over very easily to the native environment. So the work that we're doing with the web certainly can get translated so that we've essentially done a lot of work already. It's just making the decision to actually do the native app and then work on the project.